Aloha! Welcome to the Live Ukulele Podcast. My name is Brad Bordessa. In this episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about the advent of the internet and what it means for ukulele learning, some pros, cons, and some observations that I've kind of collected over time, especially in the current state of things now. The podcast is listener supported, so if you like what you hear, please go check out liveukulele.com/store. There's a number of great video lesson courses along with ebooks. You can learn to play a set of 5 Hawaiian songs, learn to play the melody, play the chords, and then also combine them to create solo arrangements. There is Groove Ukulele, which is all about strumming and how to create your own strumming patterns, become comfortable figuring out the strumming patterns for different songs. And of course, there's the Left Hand Technique course, which is kind of my overall big picture view containing everything that you need to know about navigating across the ukulele fretboard, specifically regarding lead playing and melody playing. There's also the print version of Ukulele Chord Shapes, which is same as the ebook, just in a physical soft cover copy that is a beautiful print quality. I'm kind of a book snob, but I like the way that it looks and feel really good about sharing that out with the world. That is available as well. There's, of course, much more, but you can go have a look yourself, liveukulele.com/store. And if none of that floats your boat, you can become a supporting member, which is just a monthly contribution to the cause. Allows me to spend more time working on the podcast, finding guests, writing posts on the website, sharing the good news, creating videos on YouTube, that kind of thing. Thank you so much. It really does enable the creation of most of this content here. All right, so quick recap of what's been going on the past couple of weeks. Had Uncle Kevin Brown's podcast come out. That one was really wonderful. If you haven't heard that one, go back and listen to it because that is really a lot of great thoughts regarding Hawaiian music and kind of the old school approach of learning to play and starting to gig and become a performing artist. I also put out a video on how to change strings on the string through bridge and with a normal peg. For a long time I had a video on the tie bridge and the slot headstock on my other Morbetta, but we had a crack at Big Island Kalo Morbetta the other day and I filmed it and put that up there. Hopefully that will give you some ideas and some inspiration and a little bit of permission to try and change your own strings. Somebody even commented and said, yeah, I work at a music store in Hawaii. Not sure exactly where, but that you wouldn't believe how many people come into the shop and say, can you change my ukulele strings? I don't even like performing musicians. I don't know how to change them. Will you do it? And it's such a nice regular piece of maintenance. It's something that you can really do to refresh and inspire your instrument, yourself, and it makes a big difference in how easy it is to tune and the kind of tone that you can get out of it. So it's kind of an important part of the craft, something to work on. Even if you're not a handy person, you can still do it. Just take your time, follow instructions, be really sure that you can visualize what you're going to be doing beforehand. And if you do it wrong, you can always just take the strings off and try again. Make sure you get it right. I've been playing quite a bit with my band Kingside, kind of the rock, hip-hop, funk band that I play ukulele in. That's been super fun. We played at a farmer's market last week, and then that night we went and played a wedding reception, which was super fun. They were stoked. It was just a really small thing. We just played on the patio by the pool. But we played for our allotted time, and then kind of the organizer dad was like, oh, can I write you a check and we'll have you play for longer? Like, sure, we got nowhere to be. And so we played extra time, and it was really charming. Usually you have a dance situation where it's a big gig and a big stage and a big dance floor. But this was just like, 8-10 people, just really close family and friends, just having the time of their lives. And we were providing the soundtrack. So it was kind of a fun moment. We had a nice time, and they fed us and kept the cooler full and all that good kinds of stuff. So really enjoying the fact that our hard work and practice is starting to pay off with some little bit more lucrative gigs, because playing the music is a joy and what we do it for, but it is nice to be reimbursed for the time invested a little bit. If you need Big Island event music, check us out, kingside808.com. And if you're somewhere else in the world, you can still hear what we're up to. Because, this is something else exciting that happened, is we descended on Live Ukulele Studios here and set up the drum kit, all the mics, and we tracked the core instrumental tracks for our EP. That was a couple weeks ago, and it was just a full day of, we set up on Saturday, I think, and then Sunday we were just here all day, just slamming takes, and we ended up doing 4 songs that day, just the bass instrumental tracks, kind of minus vocals and minus solo overdubs. But we played everything live, which is cool. We were kind of excited about that because in this day and age, that's not super common anymore. And yeah, it was really cool, and I think we got some good takes. And there's lots of energy when you record live like that because we're kind of playing off of each other. Of course, I was in the bedroom, the side room, closed off from everybody because of the drum bleed. Because the bass and the guitar were just going direct in, just plugging straight in. So that wasn't a concern for them, the bleed. But with the ukulele mic, we had to put me separate. But just hearing everybody in the room and playing it all together and knowing that it was happening live, it's just a really different feel than a lot of the newer records that people are putting out where it's just everything's dubbed. So that was wonderful. We had a great time. And then we recorded that following Monday is usually our practice night. And we figured, well, let's just leave the stuff set up and we'll have a crack at a couple more tunes, just like extras for when we release the album, maybe exclusive stuff for people who want to, buy the in-person flash drive or whatever. And so we did a couple like live where there won't be any overdubs. It's just what you see is what you get. What we played is what it is. And that'll be cool. There's our version of Olinda Road by Hapa, which is a famous Hawaiian instrumental from, was the Hapa album from the 90s? It's like modern Hawaiian, but old modern Hawaiian music. And then my original Corners off of the If Only album. We played that with the band, and we've got kind of a little bit of a spiced up version. But yeah, good stuff. Fun times. Okay, so regarding the internet and the ukulele, I saw a video yesterday by Rick Beato, who's an old school rocker guy who turned kind of YouTube creator, sharing his stories of the music business and interviewing people, talking about why music has gone south in recent years and how he made a video earlier about this. And he got a bunch of like, you're out of touch, old man kinds of comments. And so he came back with a follow-up and said, here's the data of Google search. And the search trend for music has gone down like by 50% or more. And then specific genres have gone down even more over the past, since I think 2005 is as long as Google has that data for search volume stuff. So the consensus was that people are not listening to music in the same way. They're not consuming music in the same way. And so that got me thinking about, it's always a struggle to be a musician and an ukulele educator. It's just, that's the way it is. But also I've noticed that the engagement and traction that you might get has been going steadily down over the years. It seems like, to me, and just what I see from my angle on the ukulele internet world. But it got me thinking, and I went and I looked on Google Trends for ukulele, and sure, it's gone down over the years. It hasn't dropped quite as much as different music terms, but it has gone down a little bit. And it just got me thinking of how social media and different ways of consuming things has changed learning ukulele. And so I had in my head like, I'll call this podcast Too Much of a Good Thing. Because the internet is really a wonderful resource if you're learning to play music. There is so much information you have immediate access to. but there's also so much information that you have immediate access to. And so the first thing that kind of off the top of my head is I got an Instagram again last month just because I thought it'd be good for business. And it's depressing. I don't like it, but I'm there and I think it's good for business. But what I noticed scrolling through Instagram, I went and followed some ukulele stuff and followed some ukulele people, is I think vapid is the right word. Just the lack of like soul or spirit in a lot of the instruction that people are creating. People make reels or shorts if you're on YouTube, and it's just flat. It's boring, and it's sold like the whoever's creating this stuff. It's sold as like, here's the fanciest thing you could ever play on ukulele. And they show you how to play it really fast, or they play a little riff, or like, hey, this is cool, watch me do this. But it's just like, it's kind of dead. There's nothing to it. There's no substance. And I think that it's easy to get caught up in that stuff because it's like, oh, let's look at this thing and see what this is. Wow, that's cool. That's impressive. Then you look at the next thing and, oh, wow, that's impressive. And you just kind of go down the rabbit hole. But if that's all we're seeing, then there's a lot of stuff missing in there. There's a lot of information and kind of aspects that inform the music that aren't there. Okay, and I'm not here to bag on the content creators on Instagram, though I kind of am if you're one of the bad ones. You know who you are. But I think I interviewed Brian Tolentino the other day, and he said, yeah, it's like, oh, there's some guys out there, it's just rubbish. Like, it's true, it's just rubbish. That'll be coming out probably next month. That interview, good fun. But there is a lot of bad information. But even aside from that, the good information has been distilled down into these 1 minute, or less clips that show you how to do something. And I think what it does is, without the context, it re-emphasizes something that has always been overemphasized with music, and that is the notes. Here are the notes of what you're playing, right? This fret, now this fret, now this fret, now this fret. That is just one little tiny piece of the music. And without deeper understanding, without deeper teaching, or deeper expression within the teaching, or anything like that, you're not getting the whole picture. Because a long time ago when I was a kid, I read The Music Lesson by Victor Wooten. And it's a very interesting book because he talks about all the stuff that no one else talks about in music. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's super interesting because it talks about, he divides, each chapter is a measure. And so he goes through, and I'll just rattle off the names of each of these chapters. Groove, notes, articulation/duration, technique, emotion/feel, dynamics, rhythm/tempo, tone, phrasing, space/rest, listening. Right? So I think he kind of sells it as like there's 10 different aspects of music. You could divide it up into as many as you wanted, as many or as few as you wanted. But the idea is that with this book, he looks deeply into the other aspects of the music besides just the notes. And I always found it super duper fascinating, and I was so glad that I found it, especially as I was like learning to play music and kind of coming up and doing a lot of practicing, because it allowed me to move beyond just thinking of, oh, are these the right notes to play this song? And to start thinking about, okay, what's the phrasing like? What are the dynamics like? How am I expressing this? Is my tone appropriate for what I'm trying to play here? And I think that is, this is a very analog thing. I'm holding the book here in my hand. This is analog. It's just a physical thing. It's paper. I can touch it. You can hear the pages. And so it's very lovely. And then you get onto social media and all of that's gone. And it's not just that it becomes a digital thing, just pixels on a screen, but the substance is distilled down to the common denominator that Western people can easily understand. Okay, and this is something that I would like to, and I should try and counterpoint with the content that I create. I hate making shorts, but it's something that I think I'm going to try and do for a while to see how the traction is, because I got to do something. But you as a Western learner, or with Western learners driving so much of the interest in ukulele, ukulele is already sort of a small thing. You have to go where the people are. And the people are Western thinkers, from the U.S. mainland, typically, and a lot of times, at least for who are reaching with an English audience. And they're used to thinking about things and understanding things and really kind of being cognizant of what it is they're doing. And they bring that to the ukulele. And so, I go kicking and screaming in that direction, but try and bring people a little bit towards that Hawaiian style of playing where you just do it, figure it out, watch the fingers, use your ears, try and understand the moment intuitively and figure out what's going on. It doesn't matter if you're right or not. You learn so much by trying to figure it out. And so those sides of things are not being accurately represented. That's a con of the internet and how things get presented. There are so many wonderful resources too, though, on the internet that are made available. I would venture to say that most of this nice content, this wonderful content, this exceptional content is long form stuff. You're not going to fit the ideas of a genius musician into 1 minute. You're just not. That's something that you have to intentionally dumb down to fit inside that moment. Like you could have a clip of somebody making some profound quote or something, but that's not the same as like sitting down for an hour and watching some sort of a lesson from some master musician where they're sharing the whole entire picture all the way through of what they do. And this is not necessarily something that is unique to the internet, though the internet makes it much easier. Like for me, it was DVDs. I had a handful of really exceptional music, mostly guitar, learning DVDs that I would pop in and I would sit and watch. And you watch all the way through it. And there was always so much information in there that was beyond the notes. Of course, they talked about the notes and how they played, but you got so much more because you were seeing more of the trajectory of what was happening in that hour of learning and that hour of teaching, absorbing. You could just pick up so much more and the subtle things and hear different things. But there is that available just on YouTube, just by default. But you got to look for it. And seeing through the clutter, I think, is by far the biggest challenge facing probably humanity at the moment, but certainly like our experience with the internet. Because while there is a lot of really good stuff, there's also way more garbage than there is good stuff, in my experience, and what I can find and see. Like, for instance, on YouTube, you can get, if the algorithm's just right and you just happen to hit on the right search term, you can find like old concert footage of like Hawaiian music performers. What a treat. That's something you would never, ever see because it's on a VHS tape in a shoebox in somebody's closet. That would never come through or be available to us without the internet. But also that's the kind of thing that's not driving clicks. It's not driving the algorithm or the engagement. So you're not going to tend to see it. You got to really know what you're looking for to find that. And so I guess just be mindful that the good information is out there, but just because it's served to you by the algorithm doesn't mean that it's something that's worth listening to. Just because somebody's popular and famous and in the search results, it doesn't mean they know what the heck they're talking about, right? In fact, I would venture to say that a lot of the people worth listening to can't put as much time into beating the system to get in front of you. And so you're not going to see them as much. I would venture to say there are exceptions, of course. There are people who are doing good work. In general, it's probably easier to rank and spend your time trying to rank for something than it is to spend 20 years learning to play the instrument at an exceptional level, right? That's just kind of the difference. So these are very uncollected thoughts, but I have one more place I'd like to go. I go here every once in a while, and I think that it's worth saying. If you're a regular listener, you've heard me say this before, but tablature and sheet music, it's so easy to get on the internet. Chord charts. Oh, I want to learn to play this song. I'm going to Google the chord chart. Bang, right there. First hit, top of the line, 5-star chord transcription. You know, of course, there are some bad ones out there, but for the most part, these days, what you get has been copy and pasted across enough websites that the quality that you end up with is actually pretty good. This is definitely not the case when the first song sites came out, like Tropical Storm. There's all kinds of bad transcriptions on there, but nowadays, it's fairly good. And people know how to use Guitar Pro. They know how to use MuseScore, so they're creating high-quality PDF arrangements of things, right? This is wonderful. However, if that's all you do, you're going to be missing out on a big piece of music. Again, because what the tab shows you is the notes. That's it. If you read music and you happen to find a PDF MuseScore transcription or something, there's also the rhythm in there because it notates the rhythm. But you have to be able to read standard notation. A lot of people aren't going to bother with that because the tab is so much easier, right? It's meant to be easy. That's a good thing. But that piece that you're learning to play, what you're getting off of the paper, especially if you're not memorizing the song from the paper so then it is within you, you're only getting the information that's coming from the paper. You're only getting the notes. And so, number one, I would say, if you're going to learn a song from a tab, that's great. But learn to memorize it too, because by memorizing it, you're going to have the notes within you. You don't have to think about the notes so much anymore. You can just play those, and you can use much more of your brain power to think about expressing the other parts of music, which is huge. That's what's going to bring it to life. Otherwise, you're just going to sound kind of like a robot playing the notes. And I think that that's what happens a lot of times if you just play off of the sheet. You just read the tab, you're going to sound robotic because all you're getting, the only information you're thinking about is the notes, the notes, the notes. The other thing is that when you go straight to the tab, you'd completely miss the opportunity to teach yourself to learn to play by ear. And you also miss the opportunity to be limited by your skill. What? That's probably a whole nother podcast topic on its own. But we'll start with listening, because you can just look at tabs. No problem with that whatsoever. But, and you can also just listen by ear and only play by ear and not know what anything is called or how to read tab. That's also great. Nothing wrong with that. You can do it any way you want. But I feel like what I've experienced, what I've seen, is that the best compromise you can have is a little bit of both worlds. I would even venture to say that listening, especially if you want to play Hawaiian music, listening is more important. It's not the only important thing, but it's probably more important. Because when you listen, you're not just hearing the notes. If you're listening to a piece of music and you sit and you figure out how to play it off of the record, you're listening to all the things, the entirety of the music. If we go back to the Victor Wooten table of contents, you're hearing the groove, you're hearing the notes, you're hearing the articulation/duration, you're hearing the technique, the emotion/feel, dynamics, rhythm/tempo, tone, phrasing, space/rest. You're hearing all those things. Whereas when you look at the tab and you bypass the listening, you're only getting the notes, maybe the rhythm. That's 2 out of the 10. So, proceed with caution, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There is a place for learning from tab. I still do that. If you're in a crunch, you need to know how to play a song. You look it up, you get a sense of what's happening. Great. Boom. Got it. But in the long run, I, for myself, prefer to listen to a song. Play along with the song 10 times. Listen to the song 10 times. Play along with the song 10 times until You figure out what's going on. Maybe I'll play with the melody and try and cop what the singer is singing by picking on my ukulele 10 times through. And then maybe I'll play the chords 10 times through. And then maybe I'll just diddle on top of it and kind of see what I can find, see what's hidden in the cracks 10 times through. And then with just all that repetition, you're hearing the music, you're exploring the music on your own, you're figuring out what works, what doesn't work. It's really powerful because you're getting all the colors. You're not just getting the notes. Okay, and then the last point that I hinted at is that by reading a tab, you can jump into the deep end of the pool without needing to know how to swim, right? If you have a pool in your backyard and you have a little baby who doesn't know how to swim yet, hopefully you have a fence around the pool, right? Because you don't want the baby to fall into the deep end of the pool. That's bad. Everybody knows this. And the tab does the same thing. I see so many people who are like, oh, do you have the tab for Jake Shimabukoro's da-da-da-da-da? Whatever song is hot, whatever song is new. It's like, I can't figure it out on my own. What is the song? Where's the tab? Yeah, that's the point. The whole point is that a lot of times you can bite off way more than you can chew. You can jump into the deep end without needing to know how to swim when you get the tab. But if there's no tab, you have to be a good enough musician. You have to know how to swim before you can get into that deep end, before you can learn to play the music yourself. And so that's one of the big things that I appreciate about the era when I grew up, is that there was enough material to learn things and to see how things worked. Like, oh man, I've been trying to figure out this song forever. I can't quite hear what the chord is in that one spot. And then you find a tab for it, and it's a big day, it's a big moment because you found the chord chart or whatever. Like, oh my gosh, it's that chord, of course. And then it sounds right, and you learn from that moment. You now know what that sound is for the next time you go to figure something out. But there was no tab for how to play While My Guitar Gently Weeps. I think that, like, I came through that door right as soon as Sony asked Dominator to take down his tabs of Jake's songs. So there were no Jake tabs. Dominator had the only ones, and they were not available because, of copyright stuff. And so we had to figure it out on our own. I remember my friend Isaac sitting down and transcribing While My Guitar Gently Weeps because he was at a point where he could figure it out. And I think he taught me, maybe he was a little bit ahead of the curve than me. So he taught me how to play it. But then I also had the tab for reference in that moment. But it was the kind of thing where just because I had the tab didn't mean that wasn't what enabled me. What enabled me to feel like that song was achievable is because my friend was at a point where he was figuring it out. And then I was mostly learning it from him. Like, oh, that's how that works. I see. And then you play it yourself and you never look at the tab again, or you never need to be shown that again because you've got it. Bang, you pick it up. Because you've spent a bunch of time trying to figure these things out without success. I think that's something that people take for granted these days, is that we learned so much by doing things wrong, by struggling and trying, and I can't get it. I can't figure out what is happening in that moment. And so that's a good thing, is what I'm trying to say. That's not a bad thing. It's frustrating. It's super duper frustrating. And sometimes it just makes you want to put the instrument down, not pick it up again. But then if you do the next day, like, oh, I get it now. I get it today. I just needed to sleep on it. I just needed to come back fresh. Now there's a little bit more. And sometimes you just weren't meant to get something because you weren't there yet. But as soon as you open up that tab and you bypass trying to learn any of that by ear, you're just completely missing all of those learning opportunities. Easy as it might be, unfrustrating as it might be, you're missing all of that. Right? I know that this might be kind of a touchy subject, but I'll do it anyways. We live in an age where there's like dating apps, right? And I no diss on the dating apps whatsoever. That's fine. Do your thing. But it enables us to avoid rejection. Whereas like back in the day, if you wanted that date, hey, you got to put yourself out there. And you got to go up in person and say, hey, would you like to go out sometime? And you had to be ready to face that rejection. And I think that it's sort of the same thing where you have a song, the song might reject you. You have to be ready for that. The song might just say, no, sorry, not your type, whatever, try again later, find somebody else. That can be music too. And you learn from that. You grow as a person, you grow as a musician, and all these things are interrelated. Music is life on a small scale. Life is music on a big scale. And I'll leave you with this thought. The very beginning of the music lesson, which you should read, I recommend it. It says, page all by itself, warning, everything in this book may be all wrong, but if so, it's all right. Which basically sums up everything I'm trying to say, is that it's okay to be wrong, it's okay to go slow, it's okay to not know what the notes are. Maybe you don't know what the notes are. You can't figure them out. But you know all the other pieces of the music because you've been listening to it. That's good too. Maybe you can't play the whole song yet, but you know what the music is. You know what the music is supposed to be. And this is all stuff that tends to get lost in the fast social media age. So, watch your influencers. Get inspired by their little clips that they put up. I'll probably be joining them, putting up some clips here and there. Use that for inspiration. But always remember that that's only a little teeny tiny piece of music and that there's so much more that can be absorbed if you seek out that long form content, seek out books and lesson videos and things that really dive in and allow you to see the other aspects of the music, because it's worth it. And even if it's frustrating, it's going to create better music in the long run, and you're going to be a better musician, and you might even be a happier person because you're not on social media so much. Okay, that's the end of my rant. Thanks for coming along for the ride. The Live Ukulele podcast is published on the first and third Saturdays of the month. Coming up next is an interview with the one and only Grandmaster ukulele player, Uncle Kimo Hussey. If you don't know who Kimo Hussey is, look him up, check him out. I think his album, at least one of his albums, might be on modern digital streaming outlets, aka Apple Music or Spotify, I think. Really amazing stuff. I grew up with Eminent Ukulele. I think had just come out when Uncle Kimo first came across my radar. He played everything on a steel string ukulele. An acoustic steel string ukulele. What? This guy's crazy. This is like cutting edge sorts of stuff. It had a really unique tone, and the arrangements and everything were really cool, and his style of playing was very unique. It was really awesome. And then I got to learn from him. But I'll talk about all this in the podcast coming up. Be sure to subscribe, stay abreast of new information. And if you're not, consider subscribing to my newsletter. You can find a sign-up form on the homepage of liveukulele.com. That's the best way to stay in touch, hear about what's going on, new podcast episodes, new YouTube videos, content, stuff like that. It's free. I won't spam you. I won't sell your information. This is not a data mining corporation. We're just trying to mine some beautiful music. That's all we're mining for. Anyways, Kimo Hussey coming up next. That will be on July 20th. I'll be out of town, but the podcast will be scheduled, and I hope you enjoy, because I had a wonderful time listening to Uncle Kimo and hearing what he had to share. Just a really brilliant mind in the ukulele scene, and just, I don't know, I think outside of the few YouTube videos that he put up, you don't really see him a whole lot, because he's an older dude. He's just cruising, retired, all that kinds of good stuff. But he's got some really cool ideas. Anyways, if you want to support the podcast, consider becoming a supporting member. It's a great help. And if anything, I'll catch you in the next episode. See you next time. Be well out there. Keep on jamming. Use your earballs. Try it without the tab. You can do it. I know you can. I believe in you. You can do it. generations and generations before have done it without tabs. That's something that is kind of cliche, but true as well. If they can do it, you can do it. Okay. See you next time. Hui ho.